Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our live coverage of the latest mission from Vandenberg Space Force Base. I'm Will Robinson Smith. Good to be with you this morning. And for those around the world who recognize, a happy Easter to all of you. We're here talking about the launch of the NROL 145 mission, the latest Falcon 9 flight from the Western Range, and the third mission for the National Reconnaissance Office within the last just over a week. Very quick pace of launches for the spy agency here in the United States. And this is the second time in that span that they are launching a batch of satellites supporting their so-called proliferated architecture satellite constellation. It's a collection of satellites that are believed to be Starshield, the government variant of SpaceX's Starlink satellite, that are built in partnership with Northrop Grumman. Currently, T-minus 27 minutes, roughly 30 seconds ahead of the planned liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket today. Looking at the liftoff time at the bottom of your screen, 5:29 a.m. Pacific, 8:29 a.m. Eastern, 12:29 UTC for our friends around the world. Taking a look at what the Falcon 9 rocket looks like. This is a still image from the night before. Don't have live pictures just quite yet of the Falcon 9 there at Space Launch Complex 4 East, but we will quite soon. Give you an idea of what the weather looks like, though. It is a bit dreary conditions at Vandenberg Space Force Base this morning, so may not be the most picturesque liftoff that we've seen from the West Coast, but if you do happen to catch the Falcon 9 in flight from your vantage point, would love to see what you're able to capture, whether that be photos or video. Be sure to tag us on social media. You can find us on X, Blue Sky, Threads, and Facebook. As we're getting things rolling here, I want to thank the nearly 800 of you who are watching with us live. If you can, you could do us a big favor just by clicking the like button, share the link. Allows more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage. Our Spacefly Now editor, Stephen Young, is running the technical operations of the broadcast this morning. Appreciate him being with us today. The rest of our crew has the morning off, as this is a West Coast venture, but they'll be back in action before you know it because, well, things have been quiet on the Eastern Range for just about a week now. We're about to get back into a very active pattern here in Florida with a couple of launches coming up. Talk about those in just a moment here. I want to thank our moderator in the live chat, Clistia Lee, for helping us out today. If you see any of the other mods cruise on in, be sure to give them a big old Spaceflight Now hello. And you can help Clistia out by following the rules of the live chat. We ask that you refrain from delving into overt politics. Please do not converse in all caps. We ask that you speak in English so that Clistia can respond, or any of our other moderators can respond as appropriate. And last but not least, be kind to all of those fellow live chatters that are here today. And let us know where you're watching from. See Mario Perez checking in from New Mexico, Sue Straub joining from Central Pennsylvania. Got Lafayette, Indiana in the house, Orlando, Florida. Good to see you all this morning. Probably see a lot of folks from the mountainous area, talking mountain time, probably on east. Still a little bit early there in California, but if you are checking us out from the West Coast or the Southwest, let us know. We're powered by a wonderful channel member community here on YouTube and make these live launch opportunities possible. So thanks to folks like My Honey, Kevin Schreiber, The Rocket Girl, Norman Reitzel, Joni Mahoney, James Fowley, and many others. Dude, Good to see you. Channel membership comes with a number of perks, including discounts at our online shop, that is shop.spacelightnow.com. Access to member-only videos here on YouTube, access to our members-only Discord server, and of course the ability to watch all of our live launch liftoff moments from the Cape here in Florida in 4K. To that end, I want to thank our moderator, channel member, Callistia Lee, for gifting 10 Spacelight Now memberships. Good to see you back, Callistia. Hope you had some good downtime. We appreciate you growing our community here on YouTube. To our 10 newest channel members, welcome aboard to all of you. We're glad to have you with us. If you haven't already, be sure to thank Callistia in the live chat. We hope you decide to stick around with channel membership. Last little bit of housekeeping. If you have a comment or question about this mission or any other goings on in the realm of space and spaceflight, go ahead and use the YouTube Super Chat feature. And not only will you be giving us some interesting things to talk about as we cruise on through the count, but you'll be supporting what we do here at Spaceflight Now, and that, my friends, is always greatly appreciated. Hope everyone is having a wonderful weekend here so far. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, we did post a new video here on the channel last night. Just dropped the link in the live chat. Part of our coverage from the 40th Space Symposium, in which we had the chance to talk to all three of the companies that are vying for a contract from NASA to send their lunar terrain vehicle to the lunar surface ahead of the Artemis 5 mission. All very different designs, all very different approaches as far as putting their team together and coming up with what they believe to be the best option for a lunar terrain vehicle to operate on the moon. It'll need to be there and in operation for about a decade per NASA requirements. And so it'll need to service the missions with astronauts in the loop, as well as be able to act autonomously without astronauts on the moon. Talked with a lot of the companies about a whole range of things, and so you can see that video up on the channel now. Hope you have a chance to check it out. A lot of cool details in that one. Coming back to our mission at hand, currently T-minus 20 minutes, 50 seconds and counting. Just about now, at this point, SpaceX is preparing the feed lines ahead of second stage liquid oxygen load. Had we eyes on the Falcon 9 rocket at this point in time in a live capacity, we'd be seeing the so-called big vent getting underway in just about 10 seconds. As we have still a number of items left on the countdown timeline, let's go ahead and walk through that. Let you know what has passed so far and what is still on the horizon for this mission today. Of course, the countdown starts with the go-ahead for the start of fueling, which happens about the T-minus 38-minute mark. Fueling began at T-minus 35 minutes with the loading of RP-1, a rocket-grade kerosene on board the Falcon 9's first and second stages, and liquid oxygen began flowing on board the Falcon 9's first stage. T-minus 30 minutes is when first stage helium load begins. It happens about 5 or so minutes after that on the second stage. That cryogenic helium is important because it's used to pressurize the main propellant tanks during flight. T-minus 23 minutes, second stage RP-1 loading wraps up. And then the aforementioned strong back chill down process gets underway, which is the most recent milestone that we just passed. That preparation will continue until about 30 seconds before second stage LOX load begins at the 16-minute mark. 19 minutes still left on the clock. Moving right along in the countdown timeline. T-minus 7 minutes, the chill down of the 9 Merlin engines will begin. That process involves flowing a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps, and it helps protect the engines from the risk of thermal shock and damage during the startup sequence. About 6 minutes before liftoff, the first stage kerosene tank is full. Then T-minus 4.5 minutes, we'll see the strong back retract sequence. That's when the clamp arms just beneath the payload fairings open up, and then the transport erector here at Vandenberg reclines about 13 degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket. It stays in that position through liftoff. 3 minutes out, the first stage liquid oxygen tank is full. Same is true on the second stage, about a minute thereafter, at which point Falcon 9 rocket is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. And in the final 60 seconds, as we hear the call that the Falcon 9 is in startup, control of the countdown is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers. The propellant tanks brought up to flight pressure. SpaceX launch director will give their go for launch 45 seconds before liftoff. The engine ignition command is issued at T-minus 3 seconds, and if all 9 Merlin engines are healthy and ignite as expected, the command will be given for the hold down clamps to release the Falcon 9 rocket for a T0 liftoff. Coming up, 5:29 a.m. Pacific, 8:29 a.m. Eastern, 12:29 UTC, or in just a hair under 17 and a half minutes from now. Taking a look at the live chat real quick. Want to thank channel member moderator Mark Otto for coming in this morning. Good to see you, sir. For having a good weekend as well. Sixteen and a half minutes to go. At this point, the so-called big vent would be wrapping up. Start of second stage LOX load is about to get underway. Mentioned there's more activity coming up in the very near future on the Eastern Range. One of those is going to be starting in the painfully early hours of tomorrow morning, as this Falcon 9 rocket that you see here at Launch Complex 39A at the Kennedy Space Center is getting ready to lift off with a cargo Dragon spacecraft up top, sending that vehicle on its way to the International Space Station. The mission is the 32nd Commercial Resupply Services mission for SpaceX so far, also referred to as CRS-32. Roughly 6,700 pounds of cargo, science, and supplies are going to be heading up to the orbiting outpost when this rocket lifts off. T0 currently set for 4:15 a.m. Eastern, 8:15 UTC. Docking is expected if the rocket is able to lift off tomorrow as anticipated. This cargo Dragon spacecraft will dock with the forward module of, or excuse me, the forward port of the Harmony module on Tuesday, April 22nd at about 8:20 a.m. Eastern. There was a reshuffling of cargo that was needed on this mission that happened as a result of the Cygnus spacecraft that was originally designated for the next Northrop Grumman CRS mission. However, it was damaged in transport, and so they had to shuffle things around a little bit with the manifest on this Dragon spacecraft. But it sounds like they were able to add a little bit more of the science back in. We'll have an article up on our website here later today, letting you preview this mission coming up again with a liftoff at 4:15 a.m. Eastern tomorrow morning. Then tomorrow night over at Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, the third rideshare mission heading to a mid-inclination orbit from SpaceX, the third in the Bandwagon series getting ready to launch. That mission looking to lift off in the evening time frame. Let me go ahead and get that time for you. It's looking at a departure from the Cape at 8:48 p.m. Eastern. 0048 UTC for those around the world. Though you may have noticed the SpaceX launch timeline for that mission on its launch page is quite truncated, likely because the presence of a South Korean satellite part of their 425 series. So, like with the other missions that have included that particular type of satellite on board, meant for national security purposes, there will not be second stage views shown from the Bandwagon 3 mission. Same is going to be true with the launch that we're looking at here today out of Vandenberg. This is, again, for those of you who are just joining us, a batch of what are believed to be Starshield satellites that support the National Reconnaissance Office's mission for its proliferated architecture. And as the Space Systems Command, which is part of the U.S. Space Force, just noted on social media, this launch will be the first that the Space Systems Command partnered with the NRO as part of the National Security Space Launch Phase 3 Lane 1 task order that supports this architecture. With the previous missions supporting the satellite constellation, the NRO has used a different funding stream. For those who do not follow national security space very closely, the way that the NSSL missions work with this current phase, phase 3, is they are split into two lanes. Lane 1 is meant for commercial onboarding, and there are task orders that companies can bid on every single fiscal year. And that's a way to allow for newer launch providers to onboard their rockets to support government, national security missions. And those are, broadly speaking, intended to allow for a little bit more flexibility, a little less rigid mission assurance, and a little bit more risk tolerance depending on the payload. That's separate and distinct from Lane 2, which was just awarded within the last few weeks. And that is structured more like the traditional national security missions in the past have, with one provider getting roughly 60% of all the launches in that phase, and the other provider getting about 40%. The difference with Lane 3 or Lane 2 phase as part of phase 3 is that there are also 7 additional missions that were slotted to a third provider, which in this case was Blue Origin. And unlike phase 1 and phase 2 of the National Security Space Launch Program, ULA got the 40% this go around, and SpaceX got the 60%. All that said, we are under 10 minutes to go with the planned launch of the NROL 145 mission coming up here, lifting off at Space Launch Complex 4 East. And we should have views of the Falcon 9 rocket coming up here in the next about a minute or so. Taking a look out at Vandenberg, it is unfortunately, as we believed it would be, not a very picturesque launch today. You can just barely make out the Falcon 9 rocket that is standing there against the fog at Vandenberg Space Force Base. Heard confirmation of engine chill just under the 7 minute mark. As expected, SpaceX is not showing upper stage views of the Falcon 9 once it makes its departure from Pad 4 East. SpaceX is breaking down its Falcon 9 rocket with some graphics. Let's go ahead and talk about the rocket. Call for RP1 loading being complete. Start at the top and work our way to the bottom. The fairings at the top are made up of a carbon composite material standing 13.1 meters or 43 feet tall, or 5.2 meters or 17.1 feet in diameter. Looking at a montage of previous booster landings. Falcon 9 first stage booster supporting this mission is B-1082, which will be launching for a 12th time today. Saw a quick glimpse of the two landing pads there at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Both will be in use with tomorrow's missions. The CRS-32 flight will land at landing zone 1, and the booster for Bandwagon 3, that'll be landing at landing zone 2. Heard the call for pressurization for strong back retract. Will be hard pressed to be able to see the clamp arms opening up or the strong back pulling back from the rocket itself, but rest assured that is the process that is just about to get underway. Heard confirmation of stage 1 LOX load being complete. Waiting for a similar call on stage 2 coming up at around the 2-minute mark.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
And with that call out, the Falcon 9 rocket is now fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. Just about now, we would be starting to see the ground gas closeouts.
Ground gas closeouts.
You can actually just barely make it out. That's the additional, well, in this context, looks like additional fog that's just rolling through, but that's SpaceX actually clearing the lines there of any additional liquid oxygen that may be remaining prior to liftoff coming up here in just about a minute.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
Good call there. We're now just awaiting the SpaceX launch director to give their go for launch coming up here in the next few seconds.
LD is go for launch.
And with that call, we are clear to go for liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket. We're going to go ahead and step back our commentary, listen in for the final 30 seconds, and we'll be back with you on the other side of launch.
T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. And liftoff of the Falcon 9. Go SpaceX, go NROL 145.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
At T plus 35 seconds and counting, Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Slick 4E at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. In case you're just joining us, this is the NROL 145
Power and
mission
telemetry nominal.
for the National Reconnaissance Office. We just had an on-time liftoff today
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
at 5:29 a.m. Pacific time. Coming up next, the vehicle will be passing through max Q, which is the point in the mission profile where the vehicle experiences the greatest amount of aerodynamic pressure.
Max Q.
Good call out there for max Q, which again is when the vehicle experiences the greatest amount of aerodynamic stress. Coming up next, we have several events happening in quick succession, starting with MECO, followed by stage separation and SES-1.
Main engine cutoff, or MECO, is where all 9 M1D engines shut down to slow the vehicle down in preparation for stage separation, which is where the first stage separates from the second stage. Followed by this,
MVAC chill.
the MVAC engine on the second stage will light, which is called out as second engine start 1, or SES-1.
SES-1 will last several minutes, propelling the second stage and payload to orbit. In addition to these major events, the fairing halves will separate about 30 seconds after SES-1, so keep an eye out for all of those events coming up in about 30 seconds.
And as a reminder, we will not have any views of the Falcon 9 second stage or the payload at the request of our customer.
Main engine cutoff.
Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC ignition.
All good callouts there coming from SpaceX. As you heard a second or two ago, SpaceX is not providing any additional upper stage views at the request of the National Reconnaissance Office in Space Systems Command. Did hear confirmation of fairing separation, though. You can see the hypersonic grid fins have been deployed. The next big milestone coming up is just about a little less than 3 minutes from now. Looking for the entry burn to begin at about T plus 6 minutes and 9 seconds. That burn will last roughly 21 seconds in duration to help slow the vehicle down. Those occasional bursts that you're seeing, like that one in between the grid fins, those are the cold gas thrusters that help to adjust the attitude or the positioning of the Falcon 9 first stage booster as it orients itself towards a landing on SpaceX's drone ship called Of Course I Still Love You. Call for nominal trajectory on both the upper stage and booster stage. This booster, B1082, should be just about at its apogee today. Looks like it's going to top off at right about 119 kilometers in altitude. And now making its descent. About a minute and a half away from the start of that entry burn. That will use 3 of the Merlin engines at the base of the Falcon 9 first stage booster to dramatically slow the vehicle down. They'll set it up for the landing burn, which will use just 1 Merlin engine. Taking a look up here through the inner stage at the top of the booster. SpaceX is still on the road to certifying its first stage boosters for up to 40 flights apiece. Once again, today's booster that is targeting a landing, B1082, is in the middle of its 12th flight. A nice view of the orbital sunrise there. Just about 10 seconds away from the start of that entry burn, per the SpaceX timeline of things.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
That entry burn underway, lasting a little more than 20 seconds. And with the conclusion of that entry burn, looking for the start of the landing burn coming up here at about T plus 7 minutes and 47 seconds. See a couple more of our moderators have joined us. Aussie Space Girl and looks like Rick Donner as well. Michael Kane also joining us this morning, one of our intrepid photographers. First stage booster now traveling below the speed of sound, and the second stage flight termination system has been safed.
Burn.
Of the vehicle for a gentle and precise landing on our drone
Stage
ship.
2 terminal guidance.
We are now waiting for Falcon 9 to land on our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, stationed in the Pacific.
Stage 1 landing will deploy. Landing confirmed.
And there you heard the call out for the successful landing of our Falcon 9 rocket. This was the 12th launch and landing for this first stage.
As a reminder, we will not be showing any Stage 2 or deployment views at the request of our customer. So with that landing of the Falcon 9 booster, we will be bringing our webcast today to a close. We'd like to thank the NRO for entrusting us with today's
Impact
mission,
shutdown.
and we'd also like to thank the Range and FAA for their support.
If you're interested in more launch coverage, be sure to check out spacex.com/launches and follow at SpaceX on X for the most.
And with good landing of the first stage booster on the drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You. That'll just about do it for our coverage. Gonna go ahead and close things out as we always do with a look at our mission stats as they currently stand, but quickly want to thank a couple of folks for their support this morning. Want to thank Psychonaut69, one of our channel members, for a $2 super chat. Thank you, Psychonaut. And I also want to thank Matthew Rada for a $2 super chat as well. Thank you, Matthew. As a reminder, the NRO requested to not show upper stage views of the Falcon 9 rocket, so deployment will be confirmed on social media coming up later this morning, but look for that roughly in about, I'd say, an hour at this point. For now, though, let's close things out with the mission stats now that we've got a good liftoff and landing of this Falcon 9 booster in the books. That marked the conclusion of the 12th flight for Falcon 9 booster B1082. This was the 461st Falcon 9 rocket launch to date, the 44th for the company in 2025. This was the 402nd Falcon booster reflight, or the launch of a booster that has flown at least once. No Falcon Heavies or orbital starships yet, so this was still just the 44th orbital launch of the year so far for SpaceX. The 138th orbital flight in the last 365 days. This was the 121st orbital launch for SpaceX from Space Launch Complex 4 East, and the 210th overall orbital launch from this site as well. Moving on to some recovery stats, this was the 126th landing of a booster successfully on the drone ship. Of Course I Still Love You. That marked the 345th SpaceX drone ship landing and the 432nd booster landing to date. Finally, with some industry stats, this was the 15th orbital launch from California, the 46th orbital launch from U.S. soil, the 51st orbital launch from a U.S. rocket company, the 78th around the world, still just one orbital launch mishap on the year so far. Here's where our pie chart now currently stands. I want to thank all of you for being with us this morning with this launch, and a reminder, we've got 2 more coming up right around the corner. First up, in less than 24 hours from Launch Complex 39A, we have the flight of a cargo Dragon spacecraft getting ready to lift off from historic Launch Complex 39A, begin a roughly 28-hour journey for it to dock at the forward port of the Harmony module at the International Space Station. That will be followed in the evening by the launch of the Bandwagon 3 mission, a collection of satellites that are heading up to a mid-inclination orbit, lifting off from Space Launch Complex 40. So if you haven't already, now's a good time to hit that subscribe button, ring the bell icon, turn on notifications here on YouTube and on your either laptop, desktop, cell phone, wherever you got it. That way you'll be alerted the next time we go live. Want to thank our wonderful moderators in the live chat for helping us out today. Our thanks to Callistia Lee, Mark Otto, Rick Donner, and Aussie Space Girl, and of course, Mr. Michael Kane. I want to thank Stephen Young for running the technical operations of the broadcast today. Most importantly, I want to thank you for wherever you've been watching from with this broadcast. We look forward to seeing you bright and early tomorrow, or perhaps tomorrow evening, if the not so bright but very much early launch tomorrow is just not your cup of tea. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith. Remember, be good to yourselves, be good to others, and we will see you next time, folks. And until then, enjoy the rest of the weekend, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.